In last session, we have seen that what's API and Web API. API is a kind of tool which does the task. To use this, we don't have to be connected to the internet. But to use the Web API, we have to be connected to the internet because the web service, Web APIs will be hosted on the servers. To connect to them, we will have to be connected to the internet. So we have seen the API integration. API integration is where multiple applications or systems communicate each other, exchanges the request and response to achieve a task. That's API integration. So we have also seen what's Mulesoft. So it's a one place where we will get to build the application, deploy and manage the application. So it's a recommended tool for API integration because of its pre-built connectors. So in today's session, we will see what's web page and web services and what's RAML specification and why it's needed. And also let's create an API specification from Design Center. We'll use Anypoint Design Center to create an API specification. And we'll make the API public. And let's deploy the API from API Manager. And also we'll see how to secure the app by setting the policies. And before getting into RAML, let's see what's web page and web service. And for that, let's go to IRCTC website. Now we are in IRCTC train search web page, and all the details we are seeing, the login, register, and everything. These are part of this web page, train search web page, and it's in human readable format. And in developer terms, all the details we are seeing, login, register, and all the buttons that are at the top, and the search window is at the left, and there is a train picture in the background. So all these will be developed from front-end developer. In developer terms, this will be developed from front-end developer. So they will get the requirement where to display the buttons and the window in the picture and everything. Based on their requirement, they'll create the web page. So yeah, this will be in human readable format. That's web page. And let's try to search search a flight to book. So I'm trying to search from Bangalore to Chennai for 5th, and other parameters I leave as it is, the default values. And let's inspect the page and see what happens when we search the train. When we search for train, let's go to the network tab, clear everything. And as soon as we search, we can see many services getting called. If we see this one, in the response page, we are getting the response already. And if we copy the list here, the list we can see this is train between stations. We have searched from Bangalore to Chennai, right? The list is getting returned. Let's go to JSON viewer and see. Okay, we have 10 trains for tomorrow from Bangalore to Chennai, right? As soon as we click on the search, there is a web service call which is giving us the list of trains. In the same list of trains, 10 results, right? We have also got the 10 from the API response. We have got the 10 trains. You can see the train list page is getting displayed with the list of 10 trains, right? The train list they got from the web service. If we go back and see, this is a search window. As soon as we click on the search, there is a web service called. There is a backend API getting called based on the input that we are giving from, to, and the date and the category details we are giving. They are searching for trains. So that's a backend API call. If we create one dummy API for this workflow, it might look something like this. We are getting the trains. Trains is the resource because we are trying to get the trains, not bus or flight, anything. So this is the resource. We are trying to get the trains, get the list of trains. So get method is for that reason, because we are not posting train, we are not deleting train, we are trying to get the trains. And based on these input, we have from, to, departure date, booking class, and the category and everything. All the parameters are there. And it's a getting the trains, so it's a get method. And at the end, we will get the list of trains as a response. So for this particular workflow, if we create a API, The REST API will look something like this. This is a dummy one. May not, the real web service might not be like this, but just for example, the get get trains API might look something like this. Okay. So web page will be in human readable format. User can see all the details that are displayed on the web page. They can give the input, they can give the stations, date, and everything, but they cannot see the web service. Web service will be used for application to application communication. So this UI front end is communicating to the databases or anything through the web service. So the real action will be done on clicking on the search. Based on the input, they'll process, they'll have the business logic, but at the end, they'll return the list of trains. That's web service. Let's take a register as another example. So when we click on the register, in the user registration page, we will have to enter the basic details of the user, personal details, address, and after entering all the details of the user, when we click on the register, there will again a web API call, web service call to register the user, to create the unique entry for the user. So front-end developer will take the input from all the text boxes and then use all the information, all the user information as a request, and then call an API to register him in the database. For example, if we create an API for registration, it might look like this. User getting registered, we have to post the information, right? We have to post user information. This JSON body has the details of the user, name, mobile number, address, everything. So we are using post method. These get, post, delete. There are many HTTP methods available. These basically represents the desired action of the user. In this case, we want to post the user details, right? We have to create a user. We have to post the user details to create an unique entry in the DB and to register a user. That's a post action. That's why we have used the post method. And in case if you want to delete the user, we will use the delete method. Let's assume the entry is created in the user table. We want to delete it. We will use a delete method and call user and delete this unique entry. When we register, a unique entry will be created for the user and the same ID will be used while deleting. So this is a delete web API. This is post API, and this is a get API. This will be used to get the list of trains based on the parameters. So yeah, this is the difference between the web page and the web service. Web page is basically human readable format, and web services, user cannot see the web service, but they will give the service. In this case, on search, the search web service will give the list of trends, and the register service will register the user. Delete service will delete the account. So basically, they will give the service, but they are not visible to the user. Those are web services, and whatever is visible to the user in human readable format, that's a web page. And, we have seen the web page and web service, and now let's go to the RAML specification. This is RESTful API modeling language, and modeling means it's representing. So people hire a hero, heroine for modeling to represent their brand, right? The same way, RAML is used for the REST API representation. It's a language that will be used to represent the RESTful APIs. So it focuses on clearly describing the resource, method, parameters, response, media type. In the example we have taken, this is the resource, because in the RESTful API, we will have to represent we will have to tell clearly what is the resource. We are trying to get what? We are trying to get flight, trains, buses, or what? That's a resource. Method is a HTTP method. Method indicates the desired action. And parameters are this, the input parameters. Response, list of train is the response, and the media type will be JSON. The response will be given in the form of JSON. Okay, this is a picture that represents what we have spoken till now about the APIs. Get trains web service will get you the list of trains. On clicking on the search, get trains API will be called, which gets the trains and have all the business logic filters based on your classes and category, date and everything. It will return you the list of trains. And if you observe, Paytm also will give you the option to book the trains. And there are many applications available outside. They will allow you to book the train. In those cases also, the first thing you will see is you will have to search for trains based on your the from and to and what date you want to travel. Based on that criteria, you will have to search a train. Again, for that, IRCTC will not expose any of their databases directly. The communication from Paytm to IRCTC will happen through web services. They will not access the databases directly. The communication is over the web services. So it may not be the Paytm alone. There can be any number of applications. If they want to get the list of trains, they can use the web services and get the list of trains and let their user book the trains. Yeah, that's what web service is. It gives you the service, and to use that you have to be connected to the internet. Again, that's a web service web API. And in the register example we have taken, it's a post API, which post the user details and register the user and creates the entry in the user table. And if you want to delete, it's a delete API, because this get, post, delete are indicating the user action. They are getting the trains, they are posting the user details, and here they are trying to delete the account. So they are trying to delete the user. They'll pass the unique user ID, which will be deleted from the user table. That's a delete action. Now let's see why RAML is needed. We have seen the definition. A RESTful API modeling language it is. It will be used to represent the RESTful API. So let's see the example that we have taken. This is a API to get the trains. We are trying to get the list of trains. Trains is the resource, get is the HTTP method, and we have 5 parameters. And we are getting the list of trains in the JSON format. I have developed this API, so I have all the information about the API, including the parameters, headers, and everything. I have all the details because I got the requirements. I worked on the development. So if I want to explain, if you want to give this API for API testing, or if you want to expose this API for other API consumers, front-end developer, or for anyone outside, we will have to explain each of these. Which all parameters are mandatory or optional, and what is the constraint, whether they are string, integer, and in the response, what all other responses we can get, 400, 404, or authentication error. And in the train object, how many variables will be there, and if we have any constraint for them. For example, departure date time, in what time zone it will be. It will take the time from IST or UTC and all that detail. We will have to keep explaining the people. Whoever is the API consumer, we should explain, but we cannot keep explaining everybody. That's where the API specification is very important. The same API, if we represent with the RAML API specification, it looks something like this. It's a get trains API, getting the list of trains. And if you see the query parameters, we have list of query parameters. And if you see the booking class, we have these many items in the list. And for date time, it should be in IST format, and all the specifications will be mentioned in the API specification, and it's in human readable format. Anybody can read and understand. The response will be in JSON format, and it's very easy human readable format. And also the RAML will be, even the machines can read. Once I develop the RAML and create a mule project by importing the RAML, the validations and the specifications can be read from machine as well. That's why the RAML is important. Yeah, let's go back to the slide. It is focusing on these parameters we have discussed. We can see here, trains is the resource, get is the method, and query parameters we have, and response is there, and the media type is there. Media type and response, we have all the information needed. So now we have seen why it's needed. We have seen what is RAML specification. It's a specification to represent the RESTful web services, why it's needed, because it's easy, human readable and machine readable. That's why it's important. And now let's go and create a API specification from Design Center. I have logged into Anypoint Mulesoft. So let's go to Design Center and start creating the API specification. So let's click on the Design Center. And to create the API specification, let's use the get trains API that we have discussed till now. We have trains as a resource. Get is the method. We have list of query parameters, and in the response, in the success response, we are getting list of trains. So for RAML specification, we will have to clearly focus on resources, methods, parameters, responses, and media types. So let's start with the resource. So trains is the resource. Now we are in the design center. Let's create a new API specification, and we will give demo train information. So let's create designing it on our own. We'll use RAML 1.0. Let's click on create API. Yes, we have got our API. We are starting with resource. So trains is the resource, right? The first one we have to focus is resources. Trains is the resource. So slash trains. As soon as we type here the right side we can see the documentation for the same. And next the method. We will have to use a get method. And if you want we can give the description for this API. Yes, description returns the list of trains. Get is the method. And what's next? After the method, we'll have to focus on the query parameters. We have list of parameters. We don't have any headers. We have the query parameters. So let's start with from. As soon as we enter, you can observe this spaces, right? That's because we have to maintain the indentation. If 1 second. If the description is given just in the wrong indentation, we will get the errors. So we will have to maintain the proper indentation. Get is the method. So let's enter and see what are available options. We can define the body. Sorry, let's enter. We have a option for header parameters and query parameters, right? We have a query parameter. So let's click on query parameters. From is our first parameter and enter. The type of the field is string. And example, Bangalore. The next query parameter should be exactly below the first one. So because we have to maintain that indentation. Let's remove all these. The type of the field is string again. Example, Chennai. We'll have to give the space after the colon. If we don't give the space, we get the error. Okay. The third parameter is departure date. Let's copy from here. The type of the field is again string and example. Let's copy this. And the fourth one is booking class. For this field, if we go to the IRCTC website and try to see the types of classes, we can see the list of classes, right? So let's use enum for this field. We will get the option as soon as we come here. We can see the available options. We can select enum and we can keep adding the items. 1A, 2A, ASL, and all. By defining the enums, we will tell the API consumer that when the value is applied to this booking class, the value must be any one among these. So we have to see what are the allowed values, and we have to pass that as a value. If we try to pass something else, it fails. If we try to pass no, it tells you clearly that we should the value should be equal to one of the allowed values. We have a set of enums and the supplied value should be one in the list. If we give all, it works. I use the small letter, it tells you the same. Okay. We go to the get API documentation. Here you can see the query parameters. We have all the parameters required. Booking class is there. Next is a category. The type of the field is string again. And example is general. We have defined all the 5 query parameters, right? What next? After the parameters, we have to define the response, right? Now let's go back and exactly below the query parameters, and we get the response option. Response, let's consider success response first. It's a 200 error response. And give the description success, the body, what's there in the body, array of trains in the JSON format. So let's select the application JSON, and in the response we have array of items, right? So let's define the type of arrays. Arrays will have list. Response will have the array of items. So let's define that. Type is array. Items. Now it's an array of items. We will have to list the properties. Properties means all the array items. So first one is train number. Let's copy this train number. It's a string field. All of these fields are of string type, right? To string field from string, yeah, string. And what's next? Departure date. This is also string. Departure time is a string. Estimated arrival is also string. Okay. Now we have the array of items. Let's give an example for it. Example. Let's copy the same array and use as an example. Copy till here, tab. On success, we are getting array of items, right? And now we can see that this I have defined in the YAML language, but this is there in the JSON, right? So let's convert the example also in the JSON format. Sorry, YAML format. For that, we can create manually by giving the train number. It's an array, right? Train number and then 101, so on. We can create, but I will use a JSON to ML converter for this. Okay, let's use a converter and convert the JSON to ML. It's simple, so let's use that so that we can save the time. Let's remove it, select everything. Yeah, now our ML response is ready. Let's copy paste. Use tab. Let's move. Even now we are getting the response the same way we were getting with the JSON example. Now with the YAML also we are getting the same response. So now we have created the get trains API successfully, right? We have defined the resource method, everything, and we are getting the array of trains. So let's go and test here once. We are using a mocking URL, mocking service to test this. Once we hit, we will get the successful response. And also we can see the required fields. We are also seeing the optional field, but we don't have any optional fields, right? Everything is required. We can see the required mark here for all the fields. If we don't give any of the required fields, we get the bad request error. So because the validation is happening based on the constraints or the specification we have defined for the API. In this example, the category is a mandatory field, right? What if we want to make it optional? So there is a field, sorry, not pattern, required. If we define that false, this will be a optional field. You can see that it's a optional field now. Let's go back to the document. Here we can see clear. It's an optional field. If you make the required true, you can see the required, right? And there is another way, another option to make it required. Now it's a required field because we haven't defined anything. So by default, it's a required field. If you use the question mark for any of the property, then that field will become the optional field. Now we don't see the required, right? We are seeing the required here, but that has disappeared for the category field. If we remove that, we can see it. So let's make this optional, and also let's set some constraint for the departure date. Departure date is of field is of type string, right? So let's define the minimum length of 11, and minimum length is 11, but this is I think 10 characters, so let's make it 10. And max length is 14, right? If you give more than 14 fields, now the datetime field has more than 14 strings, so it's giving the error. We can see that it should not be more than 14 characters. Now it has more than 14, right? So give less than 10 also, it gives you the error. If you give the characters more than 14 also, it gives error because it's doing the validation based on the constraints we set. Okay, now we have set the constraints, we have made the field optional, we have defined the successful response, right? So now we have covered the successful response. We don't always get the success response, sometimes we get the negative response. When we don't pass the required parameters, we get the bad request error, right? It's not found because we are getting the not found. That is because we haven't defined the resource properly. If we give trains and two, it works fine. Now the required parameters are missing. If I don't give the two and hit, we get the bad request, right? So let's create negative response codes as well. Let's go exactly below the 200. Let me remove all these. Enter, go back. We're getting the 400. Now we are exactly below the 200. We can define 400. So body, the response is in JSON, and example, we can copy the same and paste it. Let's move it. The required parameter 2 is missing, right? So let's make this generic. Similar to 400, we get 404 not found if we pass wrong resource, or if we pass something which is not present, then we get not found error. So we can see that we have passed the invalid trains. So we are getting the 404. So let's define 404 just like 400. Let's copy the same response and paste it 404. 404. Let's copy the error message. Align it properly and let's make this message more generic. Error trying to find the resource. Okay. And now let's cover 401. 401 is error we get when we are not a valid user. When we don't, when clients or user needs to pass the client ID or secret, client headers, if they don't pass, then that means they are not a valid user. In that case, we get the authentication error 401. Let's use the same error message for 401. It's authentication denied. Let's create error code for 500 also, because it's internal server error is very common error response code. Internal server error. Internal server error. Okay. Let's go to the get API. Let's see. We have all the error codes we have defined just now. We have 200. Along with that, we have 400 with the message that we have used. 401 authentication denied and resource not found and internal server errors. So let's create one more API. We have a train resource and get method. Let's create post method and try to post the train information in the next API. Okay, based on where you are, we are exactly below the get. That's why we are getting the post option, right? Post, we have to post request will look something like this. To register the user, we are using a post method, right? We will post the user information. We were posting the user information. Same way, we will post the train information. Post that has a body with a JSON request. Body, application JSON input, and the type, it's a train object, right? Let's use type object and properties. What our train object has? Our train object has these many fields, right? So we have already mentioned all those properties in the train array. So let's copy the same list and use it here. So let's align it properly. Shift tab. Let's come back. Yeah. Now we are posting the train object. And what do we get in the, okay, let's give the example. Example is this one, right? It is in YAML language now. It's not an array. So let's remove this dash first. Select shift tab. We are posting the train object, and this is an example of a train object. Train number is 301. It's traveling from Bangalore to Mumbai. Okay, once we call the request, we get success response. So response to 201 body. In the JSON format, we get the response. We may get something like this. Okay. Status. Okay. Message. Success. Right. Sorry, we have to tell it's an example. Remove everything. We have created a post API. Sorry. Let's see it properly. We have created a post API. In the body, in the request body, we have a train object, and this is an example. And in the response, we are getting the success. And along with success, we will have to mention about the failure codes as well. So let's copy the same. So let's look into under this train resource, we have post API. First, let's look into that. We have a body of request body which has a train, and these are the parameters of train. And in the success response, we are getting 201 with a success message. Okay, now let's copy the error codes and paste it. Save it. Now we can see that there is 400. I think I have not copied the 400. Let's copy it. Even now the post API is also ready with both success and failure error codes. We are getting the failure errors codes also. Okay, you can see the message. It's same because we have copied from the get API, right? So now we have created two APIs, get and post. We have not added the description at many places. We don't have the documentation, protocols, data types, and anything. Nothing is there. But still, if we see the root file, it's very huge. It's almost 155 lines already. So let's try to reduce the number of lines in this root file, and let's see how to organize the code. This is a data type, right? This is a train array of trains. So let's create a file for this and keep the data type outside. Let's create a data type folder, data types, and also let's create a examples folder. The data type, let's create a file with data type. We can say trains data type. In the root file, we have the array of data types. array of trains. Let's remove this and paste it here. Save. It's a array of items. So let's move the example. Okay, now we have moved the type, right? Let's define the type. We can import the file by using the include tag, exclamatory. We can include. Let's see if we are getting the, yeah, we are getting the data type. Let's move the example also. Remove it. Let's create a file in the examples. Let's select the example type. Get trains example. Okay. Shift tab. We have aligned it properly, and let's go to the root file. Example. Let's import the file. Example. Get trains example. Let's save it. So now we have defined the type and the example as well. And the data type that we have given here is exactly matching to the example. That's why there are we did not get any errors or anything. Let's see what if we add one more parameter. Okay, let's add one more property called test. This is also a field of type string. Okay, now we can see that we are getting the error. Because in the data type, we said that there is a property. In the array of item, there is a test property, which is missing in the examples. That's why we started getting should have a required property test. So this way, the validation is happening. The data type that we define should match the example we give. Now, the data type we have given is not matching because test is not defined here. If you define the test everywhere, let's use tests ABC, give everywhere for all the P items, and let's go back. Now we are not getting, right? Because it was expecting the test field, now we have added. Now let's assume I don't want to have that field because that's not important field. In that case, we can make the field optional. Let's remove all of these. Let's remove this also, and save. Now we should get the error. We are getting the error, right? The test field is expected. Let's make this field optional. As soon as we make the field optional, we don't get the error because test is anyways optional. So in the example, you can pass it or you can neglect. But what if we want to pass a null value for that? Let's assume I have a test field, but I am not passing any value because in my requirement, this field can accept the null value. In that case, you will get error again because as per the data type, the test field will accept only the string. It can be optional. You don't supply that. But when you give that property, you should pass the string. Now you are passing the null value. That's why it's saying that the test should be string. Now it's null. In that case, we can make that field accept null also by using NIL. If we use that key, then that field will accept. You can see in the documentation. If we go to the documentation, we can see the difference. Where is now the test field is union. Previously it was string. When it is a string, it only accepts the string values. Now it's union, so you can leave the field empty, or when you pass, you can pass a string. If you pass number or anything, it fails again because it is accepting only strings. See, test should be null, it should be string, it should match one of these value, it should be null or it should be string. Now we have passed the number integer. Let's remove this and go back, we don't have error. That's how we can, by using the question mark, we can make the field optional. By using the nil, we can make that field accept the null values. Okay. Now we have created the data type file and the example file. We have imported that. Now we can see a lot of number of lines has been reduced. So let's see how to move these error codes outside. So because for get also it's repeating, post also it's repeating, even if you have 10 APIs, these error codes will be common. The meaning of these response codes will not change because 400 and the message, the way we expect the message remains same. 400 is bad request, 404 is not found, the meaning of the error codes will not change. So let's make a common file and move these error codes outside. For that, let's create a resource folder. Resource, and create a resource type file. This is for error codes, right? Let's say error. Now we have created the resource type file for resource type. Let's copy these error codes. Let's copy all of these error codes. I'll remove it. Save it. And let's go here. What are the options we are getting? We can define the error codes for get method. What we are defining? We are defining the response codes. So let's copy, paste. Let's move it properly. 400, 401, 400, 404. Okay. For get, we have these many responses. Now we can go and check get method. We can only see 200 because we have removed the errors, right? Let's remove from post also. Okay. We have defined the response codes outside, so let's use them. For that, we will have to create a resource types variable by importing a resource file. Error codes. Let's import the resource file, include. We have to give the space. Resource error types. Now we have the resource type error codes. So how to use it? So before the method, we can define the type. It's a type error codes. Now we can go to get and we can see the error codes. If we remove the error codes from here, we don't see them. As soon as we define, we can get it. Let's see whether we are getting for post also. Post, we are not getting it because for post method we did not define, right? This is for get method. So let's copy paste same for post also. Let's go and check the post method. Yes, we can see here for post. It's applicable for post as well because both get and post, they are under the same resource trains. So now the type error code types is applicable for both the endpoints. Okay, now we have organized the code, and also we have reduced the number of lines. And this is a JSON example. Let's convert it to YAML. Okay, save it. This example also we can move outside, right? You can create a example file, post train example. Shift tab, save it. Let's import example, post train example. Okay. Actually, we can organize this also, because this is also train, and here also we are returning the train object. We have made the train response, get train response in the array format, right? Let's change it to object. Let's change to train object. Okay, the page has been refreshed, I think. Let's go back and see. Yeah, here we have the array of trains defined in the data type. Let's change it to the train object type. Save, remove the items. Now it's a train object, right? Here it is an object. That's why we are getting the error, because as per the data type it's an object, but in the example it's an array, right? That's why it's saying it should be an object. As per the data type, it should be an object, because we changed from array to object, right? That's why we are getting the error. So let's define the type. We have now we have this, right? Let's create a type for this. We can define all the types here in one place. Let's create train object and import the data type. Now we have a train object. Let's use the same train array it is, right? Now the type is train array and example is also train array. And here we can define the train. We are posting the train, and in the get response we are getting the array of trains, right? It's a same object. Now we have reduced the number of lines to 55, right? And let's go back to the slide and see what we have covered. We have covered the data type. We have seen how to create the examples in YAML, and also the data type we have created in the YAML language. We have not seen library yet. The resource type we have seen. We have created the resource file, and we have moved the error response codes to the resource file. Let's create a library. In this example, we have only two APIs. That's why we have just one train object. But if you have multiple, the complex APIs, then you will have a lot of types defined here and a lot of resources. So we can create a library and move all the types and resources to one place. So let's create a library. we have created a library, so let's move the all the data types to that library. Save it. Now everything is there in library. Now I think the changes will not be saved. Let's go back to library. Yes, we have. No. So refreshed. Now we have added the resources and types to the library. So let's import the library. We have to use users, then give the variable name. Let's see if we are getting the library option. Yes, we are getting. Here, if we add the include tag, we get the error. To add the library, we don't need to add the include tag. If we add the tag, we get the error saying include tag must be avoided when referencing the library. So let's remove this. Just import the library and use a lib.error codes, because now the error codes are there in the library. Lib.train it is, because we have moved the train data type to library file. Now we have seen how to create a library. If you have multiple types and resources and everything, we can reduce the number of lines in the root file. So we can move all the data types to the library file, and we can import the library and use it. And now let's see when to use it, right? Um, Now we don't have the headers. Let's assume we have some headers. Now we just have the query parameters, right? Let's create a header parameters. Headers, client id is a string field. Client secret is a field. Okay. If we go to the get, again the page will get refreshed. Okay, we'll have to type again. Headers, client id is a string field. Client secret, this is also string field. Okay, if we go to the get, we can see the headers, client id and client secrets. These usually will be added when we expose the API to some outsiders, or who needs the access, who needs to get the access to use our APIs. They cannot directly use our APIs because we will set the policies, right? Based to secure the app, we will set the policies. We will see how to set the policies, but before that, let's assume the policy is set. If anybody wants to use this API, they'll have to pass the client ID and secret. If that is the requirement, we will have these client ID and secrets. And this is there for the get API. This will be there for the post APIs also. If, even if you have the multiple APIs, these client ID and secrets will be needed for all of them. The header parameters for get API and also for post API. Now we are in the post API. We can see the client ID and client secret as header parameter, right? These both are required and they are present for the post API. Let's check for the get API. For get API as well, we have a client ID and secret headers. So it's repetitive code. If we have multiple APIs, not just two, if you have some 5, 6 APIs, for all of them, if these parameters are required to secure the app, let's say to secure the app, we have added the client ID enforcement. We have set the policy. For that, we need to add the client ID and secret header parameters. If we have multiple 5, 6 APIs for all of them, we will have to add the header, which is a repetitive code. So let's create trait and keep this repetitive code. at one place and use wherever required. So let's create a variable headers required, and what all options we have. We can define the headers. We already have headers, right? Let's copy, let's remove it and paste it here. So now we have a headers required. Let's discard. The page is refreshed. Let's create traits again. Traits, headers. You can give any name. I'm giving this. Let's paste the headers. Let's remove headers from here. Okay, let's go to Get API and Fetch. Sorry, it's refreshing. Okay, it's again refreshed. Headers required. Let's remove the header parameters from here. Save it. Let's go to Get and Fetch whether we have a header. No, we don't have the header parameters, right? So let's remove from here as well. We go to Post API. Even here we don't see the header parameters. It's just body and the response. Okay. Now let's add a header required traits and let's see if we get the header parameters. For trains resource is, we have added the headers. If we go back to the APIs and see, we have a headers. If we remove this, we don't see the headers, right? We add it, we will see the header parameters. Let's go to post and verify. Yes, even here we have, because both get and post comes under the train resource. So both the error codes and the headers applicable for both get and post APIs because they are under the same resource trains. Okay, now let's go back to the slide and see. We have covered the data type. We have created the train data object in YAML language and also examples in YAML. We have converted using the JSON to YAML converter. We have created a library, right? We have created a library and kept the resources and the types together and imported that library in the root file and using it, right? And traits we have created and we have kept the repetitive code at one place and using it. And resource type, yes, we have created a resource file and kept all the error codes at one place and importing it in the library and using it here using the error codes type, so that all the error codes are applicable for based on the methods. For get method it's applicable, for post also it's applicable because we have defined it. We have defined the error response for get method and also for post methods. Okay, we have covered almost everything. So what's next? Okay. Now we have created the API and also we have tested, right? We have organized the code. We have reduced the number of lines. Now at the end, we have totally 50 lines of code because error codes we are getting from the resource file. Headers are here as a trait, and data train is a data type that we have kept in the data types file, and also examples are also separated, right? So now we have organized the code and created the API specifications, which we can clearly see in the documentation. We can clearly see what are the query parameters and the responses that we can get. We can get 200 if something goes wrong. If we don't pass the parameters, we can get 400. For not found, we can get 404. So on. The same thing is applicable for post also. In the post API, we are in the request body, we are sending the train object and we are getting the response 201, 400 and 404, so on. Now let's go and test this API from the Postman. Okay. We are using this mock service to call this, right? Let's use the same from the Postman and see if it works. Let's add a request. It's a get API. I am using the mocking API. We can see that no organization header, right? If we use the mocking API directly, it won't work. So let's modify it and make this public. We will click this and copy the public link. Okay, this is a public link. Let's copy it and paste it here. So remaining we will copy from here. Let's run our flow. Let's call the get API because I want to copy the query parameters. Click on try it. It's a mocking API. Let's click on send. We are getting the success response. Let's copy this. Let's not copy completely. Just let's copy the parameters. Okay, from trains, let's copy everything. Okay, till trains, because trains is the resource, right? So let's paste it here. We can see we are getting all the required parameters. Right, let's call the service now. Client ID secrets are missing because we have to add the headers, right? Client ID, client secret. Let's call the API. Now we are getting the response. We have added the test, but for test example, we did not pass anything, so we are getting the null. Okay, we are successfully able to test from the Postman. Now let's go back and publish to the Exchange. Click on publish to Exchange. One 1.0.0 is the first version. We will give publish to Exchange. It's publishing. Let's see what is pending. Okay, we have created the API specification from Design Center. Now let's publish it. Okay, it's published to the Exchange successfully. From here, let's go to the Exchange. Let's see if we have a demo train information. Yeah, demo train information is available. Let's click on this. Okay, now we can clearly see what is the difference between the API we had here. The API was in this format, right? Previously, sorry, here. API was something like this. We had a resource and we had to explain everybody what is the method we are using. Get method, train is the resource, and we have the number of query parameters, and also in the response we are getting the train array of trains, and all this we had to explain the people. But now we have created the API specifications. Now it's human readable format. The API consumer can come here to the Exchange and read more about our API. They can come to the demo train information, and also they can see the endpoints. In the endpoints, train is the resource, and under the trains resource we have two APIs. One is the get. If you click on the get, we can see the information related to the get trains APIs. Train is the resource, get is the method. We have list of query parameters. All these are required. We have a constraint set, right? And also booking class will accept only these set of values, and category is an optional field, right? And also they have a headers, and once they get the success response, they'll get the array of trains. And in case of 400, we will get this message. 401, it's authentication denied. And similarly for 404 and 500, they can clearly see the information, right? And also they can call the API, right? They are calling the API, they are getting the response. If they don't pass the required value, they can clearly see what's going wrong. And if they don't pass the NI, we can clearly see what's missing. The value is required, but currently it's empty. You will have to fill it. And also example is displayed. And they can come to the Exchange and look for the more information. The same thing applicable for post also. This is a post trains. We have a header, and in the body we are supplying the train object, and in the response we are getting the 201, and this will be the response body. Yeah. Now we have published. So let's make the application API specification public. Now it's not public, it's private, right? Whoever is in our organization, only they can see the API information. So let's make this application public. And save it. So once we save it, it will be available in the public portal. Save it. Let's go back to the asset. Here is the public portal. Now we can see that demo train information is available. If the API consumers are not in our organization and they are from outside, they can come here to public portal and they can explore more about our application. Okay. What's next? We have made the API spec public, and now let's deploy the API from API manager. Okay. Let's go back to AnyPoint Mulesoft. From here, let's select API manager. Now we have created the API, right? So let's deploy that application. To the sandbox we will deploy. Let's add new API. Select Mule Gateway. Let's deploy a proxy application. Target type will be Cloud Hub. It will be hosted in the Cloud Hub server. So runtime version is 4.40. Proxy name demo train proxy. Okay. Okay, this is the API we have just published, right? This is the one, demo train information. That we have to select because it's saying clearly select API from Exchange. We will have to select our API. This is the API we have just developed, right? So let's select that and latest version, and let's use the default values. Let's go. We'll use API. For implementation URL, let's duplicate this. Let's go to the Exchange. This is our API, right? Click on this API. Okay, let's click on this API. If we select the get trains API, we are getting this URL, right? Let's copy this URL. Till m, let's copy this same URL. Paste it. This is the base path I have given API. We have to remember this. So next, it's showing the options that we have selected. Save and deploy. It takes some time to deploy. So let's go to the Postman and prepare a new request. Let's create a new request. Let's copy this URL only. Let's name it deployed. Once we deploy the application, we will use this proxy URL. So we are just preparing the request. So this is anyways mocking the URL. Let's remove this. Okay. Let's wait. It will take some time to deploy. We can add client ID and secret also because we have a client ID and secret header. Okay. Category is also there. General. It's still getting deployed. Okay. we are in this stage. We are deploying the API from API manager, and once we deploy, let's see how to secure the application. I just clicked on this URL. Give a timeout, please. API is the base path. Okay, I think it's deployed now. Okay, we are getting it. It's already hosted in the server Cloud Hub. See, it's deployed. It's working here already. Okay, now we have deployed the application from the API manager. We can see that it's deployed and it's active. Go to sandbox. Let's see if it's take some time. Let's click on this. We can see that it's active. It's deployed successfully. We can see it's working. So let's test with negative clause. If we don't pass the required parameter, we should get the bad request. And also category is optional. We should not get any error because it's optional field, so it doesn't matter we pass or not. So client ID, if we don't give the client ID, it gives the error, right? So we have deployed it successfully and it's working fine. Okay, now it's a last step. We have to secure the app by setting the policies. Let's go back to the application. We have deployed it. Let's go to policies and set a policy. We cannot let everyone access our APIs, right? So let's set client ID enforcement policy. So once we set this policy, the API consumer must get the access for our API. And let's we'll see how to get the access. First, let's set the client ID enforcement policy. We have come to the policies tab and setting the client ID enforcement policy. Click on next. And we will have to pass the client ID and client secret in the header. That's what it's saying. If we don't have these headers, you will get the authentication 401 error. Okay, leave the default value as it is. Click on apply. Okay, now we have set the policy, right? Let's go to Postman and run. It takes some time to reflect. Okay, now it's working. We have set the policy and it's getting validated, right? Now the client ID and secret fields are present, but it's invalid. Now we should get the proper client ID and secret details. Let's go to our application to demo train information. We have come to the exchange and we are in our demo train information application. Let's go to exchange again. Now click on the summary. Now we can see that demo train information we are in. And if you click on these three dots, we can see that request access. So API consumer, whoever wants to access this API, they can come to the exchange or public portal. They can come to our particular application and request the access. And which instance, here we can see that 984 is the version. We can create a new application name. Demo train app. Okay. Create request access. Once the access is requested, let's open Notepad. Let's copy the client ID. Let's use the same values because now we have requested for access and now the access is approved and we are now able to access the API. Client secret, let's copy and use. Okay, now we are getting the response. because the API consumer got the access for the API, and with that client ID and secret, they are successfully able to access our API. If they don't give the client secret, it's will not. Now we are getting the success response. We have covered the last point as well. We have secured the app by setting the policies, right? So that's all in today's session. So if you like the content of this video, please like the video, and also if you have any suggestions for me, please let us know in the comment. Thank you.